So I was scrolling on TikTok and I came across a live stream where you had these FBA people doing their usual anti-black immigrant rants and raves. So I left some comments, and in response to my comments, they invited me on to be a guest. So when they eventually got around to me, I made a few comments, and then the host made some comments. He went on this long diatribe, this long rant. And when it was my turn to respond, they didn't even let me get a word out. They started to mute me, talk over me, and then you had these other people go on long rants in response to me. So when I saw that there was no real dialogue or real discussion, I decided to leave that live stream. So I'm going to take out time right now to explain like my issues with the whole FBA movement. And hopefully I can do this succinctly in this one video, lay out everything. The first thing is this: that movement is a complete distraction. There are far more important issues that the black community is dealing with right now. We have far bigger fish to fry. Our civil rights are under attack. This Trump administration is trying to eliminate diversity, equity, and inclusion. This Trump administration is trying to take away our voting rights. This Trump administration is trying to dilute black voting power, not only in Texas, but around this country. But yet and still, these people want to be focused on some diaspora war. Donald Trump has sent federal troops to Washington, D.C. to occupy black communities, while these people are talking about diaspora wars. Not only has Donald Trump sent federal troops to D.C., he's talking about sending federal troops to Baltimore, Maryland, Chicago, and other cities that are governed by black mayors with majority populations, with majority black populations. So in addition to that, this man is trying to give police immunity. This man is literally trying to give police immunity to harass black people. This man is getting rid of consent decrees that were designed to address racial discrimination in law enforcement. This man is literally reversing the clock of progress. So those are bigger fish to fry. In addition, the Trump administration is literally trying to erase black history. While Trump is doing all this FBA movement is distracting people and having people caught up in a meaningless, silly diaspora war, which serves no one, serves none of our interests. It only serves the interests of our enemies who would rather see us fight each other instead of fighting our actual enemy. The other thing is this: all that movement does is promote division. It simply divides and conquers black people when we need to be united. That movement started out being a movement about reparations. At least it professed to be a movement about reparations, but it never really did anything to make reparations material. If you are serious about reparations, you realize that you need coalition partners in order to get any kind of significant federal legislation passed or even state legislation passed. But instead of building coalitions, these people want to divide and conquer black people. They want to have black people from America fighting black people from the Caribbean, black people from America fighting people that are continental Africans. That doesn't serve our interests. All it does is divide and conquer us. And the truth of the matter is, our enemies don't make those distinctions. They didn't make that distinction when it came to Amadou Diallo. They didn't make that distinction when it came to Bolton John. They didn't make that distinction when it came to Abner Louima and countless other black people that were targeted, both so-called foundational black Americans and our immigrant brothers and sisters. They don't make those distinctions. They just see black people and they see the N-word, but yet and still, You have these silly, lost buffoons arguing with one another on the internet. The other thing is this. That whole movement is an imitation of white racism. Just as white racism, these racist white people think they're better or superior to other groups of people, that FBA movement thinks that so-called foundational black Americans are better than other groups of black people, that they are somehow exceptional. And that is deeply problematic. You are emulating the same anti-immigrant sentiment of the far right and the racist elements of this society. And that's sad to see. It's sad to see black people want to be racist. It's sad. The other thing is this, the other point that I would make about that, just as the white racists, use slurs about black people and Hispanics, the FBA movement has a slur that they use against immigrant black people. They refer to them as tethers. So that whole FBA movement is an imitation of white racist movements in this country. The other thing is this, they try to label the majority of black immigrants as basically as enemies, as what they had called tethers and all that kind of stuff. Basically making huge stereotypes about black immigrants. When the fact of the matter is, black immigrants have been at the forefront of the struggle for black liberation in this country. They have been with us side by side in that struggle. And I make no distinctions among them. You have Marcus Garvey. We wouldn't even have the red, black, and green flag of black nationalism if it wasn't for Marcus Garvey and his whole movement. Another example would be Kwame Ture, the revolutionary Pan-Africanist. And the list goes on and on. There are countless examples of black immigrants that have been at the forefront and right side by side with us in our struggle. But they want to ignore those people and want to paint the majority of black immigrants as if they are some kind of traitors, ignoring the fact that some of the biggest traitors in the black community are so-called foundational black Americans, like a Clarence Thomas, a man who has been one of the most detrimental figures in black history. And the other thing is this, they try to, get me into this trick bag about, comparing people raising arguments against so-called conservatives. They were basically saying that's the same thing. It promotes division in the black community, just as, you're saying that our movement promotes in the black community. Well, the arguments that are raised against those so-called black conservatives have nothing to do with their ethnic identity. It's about their positions on issues that matter. That's what it's about. If they are taking positions that are detrimental to the black community, they need to be called out for what they are, regardless of their ethnicity, whether they're from the Caribbean or whether they're from America, whether they're from Africa. A traitor is a traitor, and they need to be called out as such. And one of the last points that I'll make about this FBA movement is that it's a for-profit enterprise. It was founded by a man who is a grifter, a man that's all about the dollar, a man that went from one hustle to the next, went from being a wannabe pimp to a rap artist to somebody that was about protecting melanated people's interests, and then all of a sudden he's with this foundational black American thing that he has copywritten and he's profiting from. Please wake up and realize what is really important and stop being distracted by this FBA movement and everything they stand for.